Hey everybody, it's Jillian. Good morning. So I'll tell you what, since I am a believer in the polytheistical spirituality of the gods, okay, now I'm not saying that my cabinet has a god or my bottle has a god, but all of biodiversity, every living creature, living thing on this earth, and even outer space, every single piece of life has a God to it. It has a creator. It has something that gave it life. Now, you could be a monotheistic where you think only one God created life, which you could say, yeah, it could be one God that created heaven and earth and created the sun, moon, and stars, and all of the different gases and acids and masses and electrical impulses. But I think that it started off with one thing. Well, actually, I don't even know how it all started. It doesn't even matter. What matters is everything was out there to then be used as a chemistry experiment. And then this is where life is. Okay? So life began somewhere, okay, and then life continues. Why do things die? Because it falls apart and it doesn't have the stability and the organization. Even though it's in an environment that can support it, but the intelligence, here's the thing, the intelligence of that piece of biodiversity is the difference of why you would have two types of sexuality, sexual reproduction. Mitotic reproduction, mitotic sexual reproduction, or asexual reproduction, or where you have gametes and all that, and haploid and diploid and whatever. And then you have meiosis reproduction, sexual reproduction. So there's asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. And so I don't know where I was going with that. I knew I was going with that somewhere, but whatever. I'm just trying to figure out all this stuff. This is just so much. So anyway, so me understanding the gods and immortality, okay, then gave me the opportunity to not even discount immortality. Because remember, I never said immortality until recently. It was just within the last couple weeks that I discovered immortality, to use that word and feel okay with it without all the baggage, when I actually discovered the gods. Okay? When I discovered the gods and the mythology, and then looked at the Illuminati and looked at all the different rituals and sacrifices and traditions, and then I looked at then what the Minotaur is, and then the different mythological gods and creatures and stories, and then realizing the connection between, Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Bible. I mean, even though they're completely different books, it's still a recounting of events. Some are a bit more, like the Bible has a very specific recounting of events with also laws and things, and then it's also been revised and done based upon different religions. But Homer has no reason to be revised because he recounted events based upon his perception, and he could have been a god. So immortality can finally be substantiated, because then, yes, but how do you substantiate the gods? Well, forget Greek mythology for a minute and then go into science. Like I said, everything that I talk about has to be science-based. And so doing the research on immortal cells and then ketosis. Okay, ketosis. Like, what are you about ketosis? Well, because people are demonizing sugar. People are demonizing, so many different foods, and they're promoting one food over the other, and just like all oils and all foods and all sugars are absolutely fine. If it's food grade, it's fine. If it's not food grade, don't fucking eat it. I mean, that's pretty much the rule of law, the rule of thumb. Okay? And so ketosis will like I said, in a more general sense, like ketosis cannibalizes the good cells, but what good, how does the body know what cells? I didn't know, like, I didn't really know even the difference between what cells what. Like, I do and I didn't. But when ketosis happens, it burns cells. It burns cells. It cannibalizes. That's when people eat a high fat diet, high protein, but no sugar, no carbs. They are basically burning their own body for fucking fuel. They are cannibalizing themselves. And so, excuse me. And so then I'm like, well, how does, I don't know what had me ask this question, but then I was like, well, then how do you know which cells does ketosis burn? And then they're talking about germline immortal cells and then somatic. And I'm like, okay, what's the opposite of germline cells? Because there's the immortal cells. So what are the mortal cells? I'm looking at mortal cells. I couldn't find shit for mortal cells. And then I looked up somatic cells. That's the opposite of germline, is somatic. And I had to do a bit of research because it's not always what you think it is, right? It's not mortal versus immortal. I mean, that would be too obvious in science. So no, they have to have germline cells, which are the sexual. So it could be mitotic sexual, asexual reproduction, or gamete sexual reproduction, meiosis. And then somatic cells are any other cells that are not reproductive cells. So then I saw then the immortal cells of HELA, Henrietta Lack, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And so I look up, and so then I go and Google, and she has these immortal cells. And this is back in 1950. She was born in 1920. She was a African American tobacco farmer down south in Alabama. And they were doing experiments back then. This is like back in the Tuskegee experimental days. They actually took her tissues without her knowledge, and they tested her tumors. Now, why only this article from 1950 with this specific woman and this specific genetic line? Well, if they were to test everybody that has cancer, because basically germline cells are found in naturally occurring cancers. It's not just she was special and she's some, anomalous thing. No. All cancer is actually sexual reproduction, because the growth, it is mitotic. That is my link to immortality, is the fact that those tumor cells were able, this has made it more immortal, is that they were able to keep alive those cells 60 years after her death. So imagine you as a human with not just because cancer is, when someone says cancer metastasizes, because the body's trying to freaking live. Why do you think your cholesterol goes up as you age? Because your body's depleting and the body's trying to bring up fats and things to keep it going. I'm telling you guys, the body is so freaking desperate to live that yes, things will start growing as you are aging. And the thing is that you can't handle that growth because you're leaking on the back end, and then you have to get a vaccine to go help you transition to a new environment because your body is that fucking weak. That's why people die in our society, because they cannot handle the evolution of growth like cancer. They can't handle the autoimmunity of agonist and antagonist antibodies that are balanced. And so then what do? They go get a vaccine, they go get a therapeutic, they go get antibiotics to stop the growth, to stop the action potential, to stop the thermodynamics. And essentially stopping themselves, like immediately, if it wasn't tested correctly at the hospital, or over time, the aging process, of which people are so open to and so loving the aging process. Oh yeah, grow old gracefully. Oh yeah, I'm going to go to heaven, or I'm going to go to hell. I'm telling you, this is, and so the gods, once I actually acknowledge the polytheistical gods of biodiversity and biochemistry that can be linked back to Greek mythology, and then I finally able to use the word immortal to freaking substantiate indefinite life, and then realizing that humans don't learn shit out of a vacuum, don't know things out of a vacuum. It has to be taught to them. Human sacrifice has to be taught to them. Rituals have to be taught to humans. All religion, politics, and science have to be taught to a human. Just look at your baby. Your baby doesn't know anything until you fill that baby up with whatever knowledge you want to give to that baby. Well, what do you think a caveman who's only going by his instinctual, mechanisms, the baser level instincts. How do you think he knew how to run a freaking civilization, to know even human sacrifice, to know even how to honor some god? Because, the cavemen way back when they were hunter-gatherers, they knew enough to keep them alive, reproduction and protection and basic feeding and eating and whatever, just like a dog. Okay? But what would give the dog intelligence to be able to go and speak and be like, Dr. Doolittle's dogs, okay, or animals? It's the fact that some higher power came down or appeared or was able to make the connection, tap into the antenna, the pineal gland of that human, and start infusing knowledge. And then, yes, asexual and sexual reproduction then gave way to the demigods, of which then we have, all of us are demigods in some way, but some of us have suppressed our demigod potential because of drugs, alcohol, sex, all the things that would cause the body to really deteriorate over time and then accelerate. Yeah, we have suppressed our human divine potential. And so Homer Simpson, when I looked up Homer Simpson, that is the 1% that know this stuff, making fun of all you cavemen that love Homer Simpson and the Simpsons. Do you know what Simpson is? It's a foolish son. That's what Simpson is. And so taking off from Homer, who was the one that infused knowledge into the world, and then taking it away by, that's like a plus and minus. That basically says, okay, we're going to make you neutral. We're going to have something like Homer Simpson, which is basically a plus and a minus. Okay, plus is Homer, Simpson is minus, because of foolish. How do you have a foolish, knowledgeable person? Well, that cancels each other out. So then you have the actual show that is based upon Simpson, not really Homer in its derivative. And there you have the gods, yes, and the demigods that know this, making freaking fun of all you guys and giving you arguments and giving you things to be all pissy about, and you don't even know your own potential because you're lost in distraction. And that's what, so I'm not saying don't watch TV. Fucking watch TV, because you will see all of the making fun of humanity who doesn't know their own potential all over every show. I'm telling you, it's incredible how much our government, which, there's nothing wrong with them really, but they're making fun of you. They're watching you guys go to your churches and go to all your different events and loving your aging process. They love watching you go to biotech and getting all nipped and tucked and injected and whatever. And you're a source of comedy, because humans don't know their freaking divine potential. I mean, when you have someone like Henrietta Lack, who has these tumor cells that are germline cells that can live 60 years after her death, and they're giving you freaking chemotherapy, cannabis, and antibiotics, and playing the plug and play with your immune system to do antigen, to then create antibodies that may do a search and destroy, as well as agonists, give you some kind of growth potential. And it may be metered out very carefully so that too much of that activity doesn't destroy you, which is why people get different cancers and disease and chronic illness, potentially linked to exposures to therapeutics. But that's already in your DNA because you're that much at a deficit. But I mean, come on. That's right there telling you that science and technology are not prolonging your life. The only reason why you would get a saved life from the therapeutics is if you were that very small percentage that may have needed a little bit of an intermediary that may have bought you maybe a couple years. But how do you know? Okay, yeah, they do tests, okay. But nobody really knows how the virus is if you survive this long with no vaccines or no therapeutics in this environment, you're probably going to be okay. I mean, my dog, actually, when my husband came home last night, because he's out in all the neighborhoods every day, and he works his ass off, right? Every day. And so he comes home and he's dirty as hell, right? And my dog sniffs him and I see her shaking, not because he's mean to her, because he's bringing home viruses. He is in so many different microbiomes. He brings home viruses. And then and so she's so sensitive, but you know what? She actually had a really good night last night. She was shaking, so I gave her some of the J juice. She stopped shaking. Gave her a bunch of pizza crust, but gave her a bunch of sugar and some protein stuff and sugar and salt just to keep the activity going so things don't get clogged up and then do whatever weird stuff. And actually, she was fine last night. I was so surprised. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. So I was actually up with her just to make sure that she was okay. The only thing that she did was sneeze, like really a deep sneeze last night. But she was shaking as soon as she saw my husband, and he was petting her because he's in different environments. He's bringing home every single virus in the book. And I'm fine with that because I need to get acclimated to the environment. Okay, so he is my immunization. My husband is. Since I don't go out that often and I only go out to go shopping and during the week I'm pretty much home, you know, he is my link to the outside as far as the microbiome. And so, yeah, so if you can survive, you know, in this environment, you're probably going to be okay. But if you have to go get a vaccine or a therapeutic for whatever reason, do the J juice. Because especially if you're just starting the J juice and you know you have predispositions, you might as well just, you know, do the J juice, get the vaccine and whatever. And your body will calibrate to make sure that the autoimmunity does not turn into an autoimmune disorder. Because right there, when you are just alive and you're growing up, that's autoimmunity. Because you are not manually producing antibodies. You're not going in and saying, okay, I'm going to go turn this switch on, this. You're not going in and flipping the freaking breaker in your breaker box of your body, right? You're not going downstairs to your basement every morning to flip on the switch to give light to all of your rooms. No, you have the breaker that's on and you flip lights on and flip lights off as you move through the house. The same thing with the body. When you're moving around into the environment and you're getting up and you're thinking what you got to do, those are automatic switches. That's autoimmunity. It's when it becomes an autoimmune disorder is because you have now put another programming in your body that is not working very well with your imbalances that you already have sustained through your genetics and whatever lifestyle that you've led. And it causes glitches. It causes then channels to be left open, channels to close indefinitely. It causes then more growth to happen, less growth to happen. It causes so many issues when you have a programming on top of already your imbalanced biochemistry, of which then people then go get nipped and tucked and have organs taken out, have organs put in because they haven't figured out how to actually recalibrate their system to reset the breaker box. That's essentially what your immune system is. It's like a breaker box. It has so many different switches, and then biotech comes in. Since you don't happen to know how to operate your own breaker box, they go in and manually program your breaker box, which then, you know, inevitably the outcome is death. Oh, but you're supposed to die. Well, yeah, that was the curse of humanity, and they wanted, you know, to exploit humans, but now we're in a new world. Now we're in a new world where, holy shit, you know, I learned about the J juice, withstood all the bullshit, started learning things incrementally, and then I'm putting it out there for all of you to consume it, to understand it. Had to switch gears a few times because of the way I worded things, and not everything was exactly what I thought it was, so I'd go back and correct myself, like not demonizing sugar like I did way back when, and now actually no, sugar is great. Even refined sugar, there's no poisonous sugar or salt out there. And so there are things that I had to do to incrementally understand, to expound upon the information, and I'm taking the research from PhDs in academia, in the science world, why they would not test more people and say, oh yeah, another immortal cell from someone in 2020. Oh wait, this is an old ass test from 1950. So then people are like, oh, well, that's a 1950s test. That doesn't really count anymore. You should only, like some PhD told me when I was doing my stuff a couple of years ago, she was saying you should do research. You should bring up articles that are very recent, not stuff from like way back in 1920, 1930, 1940, because it may not be relevant. And then there's other research on top of that that will then discount that. I'm like, shut the hell up. If it happened back in 1950, it's gonna happen in 2020. Okay, there is no difference in time. The fact that you don't have a recent study of tumors that are basically immortal, okay, speaks to the fact that it's like it's being suppressed. Oh yeah, we'll give you the information, but the way we can discount it is by saying that the article is only 20 years old, or 50 years old, or 100 years old. And so, yeah, so anyways, yeah, so that's like, that was my substantiation of immortal cells, is the fact that right there, and why, and then it speaks to then the suppression of this information when they're lying by omission. When you're not giving the public this valuable knowledge that tumors are actually evolution. Cancer is evolution. Cancer is basically indefinite life if you foster it correctly and you actually allow all the systems to fucking work together, and you're not nipping and tucking and overriding programs with another program trying to create the perfect specimen. Because let me tell you, you can create the perfect specimen. Something like a Frederick Eklund, gorgeous guy. He's one of the stars on $1 Million Listing. And he has 2 kids, and he has a husband, and they are freaking gorgeous. So you have that beautiful specimen, okay? You can keep that alive indefinitely without doing sexual reproduction, okay? You could keep those humans alive indefinitely. And then if you want to make clones out of them, yeah, you take their cells, their gamete cells, and then find a really beautiful woman that has the same, strong genetics, and make a baby in a freaking in a test tube, okay? And you can clone them. That's how you create a beautiful human race, is take very stable people who are successful, peaceful, productive, inventive, not distracted by so much bullshit, who are logical with reasoning. And you can clone, and that's what biotech is doing. But first they have to get rid of the chaff. And that's what my book is about, is that the NWO, nothing wrong with them, the Catholic Church, the Freemasons, Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, all the great players that you know about, that you're all like, oh my God, Bill Gates, they're so horrible. No, they're trying to create a utopian society. They're trying to and who's to say what kind of people they want in our society? But here's the thing, diversity is the name of the game. Women are being revered, yes. Diversity, they want. I mean, I watched Eurovision the other day. That was probably the best movie I've seen in a long ass time. It had the music, it had the characters, it had the diversity. I actually had my husband watch it. He was just like, "What the hell am I watching?" Because he's such a hillbilly. I love him to death, but he's very conservative. So giving him Eurovision, watching him watch, he's like, okay, is this stupid? I love him. He's so funny. But he's very open too, but he doesn't like sit through musicals. He's not a musical dude. He can barely sit through a movie that, unless it's like killing or someone doing stupid shit to each other, he doesn't have the patience for. So anyway, so Eurovision is really the vision of our society, the new world. And there's nothing wrong with it. And so yeah, you're gonna see things that look like satanic with the horns. That's the Minotaur from Hades. It's a representation of the yin and yang. You don't have to put some kind of religious connotation and say, oh God, everyone's going to hell. No, it's just a representation. Yes, there's gonna be human sacrifice. And you know what's gonna happen. You can't stop it, okay, you guys? Those of you who think that you can stop the human sacrifice, human trafficking, wonder what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, who cares? Protect you and yours. Don't be the one sacrificed, and be fucking logical. Because people are sacrificing themselves every day when they go to biotech and they're watching their family and friends deteriorate as they're in oncology or they're in palliative care. That right there is human sacrifice. It is the palliative care clinics and hospice. And I hate to say it, but that's what it is. Now, what I'm trying to help you out is not to be in that position, to be naturally ritually sacrificed, or be part of or be a victim of some nefarious thing out there that does human sacrifice. They usually go after the people that like Jeffrey Epstein. He goes after the most hardest luck cases. He didn't go after very well-to-do daughters like Donald Trump's daughter, Ivanka. No, he went after the ones that were the throwaways in our society, the ones that the parents didn't give a crap about, the ones that really had a lot of issues, daddy issues, mommy issues, that ran away, that were part of so many different, nefarious things, that's how he was able to victimize and get away for so long, because he was dealing with the throwaways of society. And I hate to say that, but that's why so many victims and predators in our society are able to flourish, because parents don't really understand or don't know how to teach their kids how to understand the way the world works. And they're like, oh yeah, go wear your booty shorts and go wear your low cut tops and your tank tops and show everything out to everybody. And so the predators out there are like, dude, this is like, a meal right there, meal on wheels, whatever, and that's the thing. And so I'm not saying be puritanical too, but there's got to be a balance of just honoring the mind and not always the body. Not always, having to put on your war paint every day. It's okay to be natural. It's okay to be just, real with the world. And offer something more than what these guys that have these issues expect. And so anyway, so that's why, a lot of those things flourish, the human sacrifice, human trafficking, because there's a lot of people in our society that are so messed up, and then they have kids. And so when you see a lot of infanticide, you feel bad that it happens, but you realize they also are in a family that they would never have a chance. Like, never have a chance. And though you feel bad for that situation, it's like, shit, that whole balance of like, shit, that's a life, but did that kid have a chance? When the system is so full of kids from abused homes, right now we have people that are going after the CPS. Yeah, CPS has their own issues, but we have so many families out there that don't know what to do with these kids that they have, and these kids get abused, and it's like, what the hell? So right now, we're going through a reset, like a major one, and it's going to be done in a way that is dignified. It's gonna be justified. Okay, you already see the spring break, and we're seeing more upsurges. I feel the tiredness that I've felt being exposed to the COVID. My dog is like an antenna barometer. I can tell when she's been exposed to another variant. She goes through her different symptoms and stuff. But she's doing fine. She snaps out of them pretty quick. Though last night I was surprised she didn't have an episode of a symptom, because she was exposed to my husband yesterday. I was exposed to my husband too, but I could do whatever. My body just gets tired. I don't have any more headaches or any other types. I think I had my hand was really like, he said his shoulders and everything were hurting. A couple days ago, like, my hand was like sore because I did have some kind of carpal tunnel type of scare. Not really carpal tunnel, but I had to wear a brace when I was working at a company because I was doing so much repetitive in a non-ergonomically done chair. So then I got out of that job because it was dumb. But yeah, so I feel the variants. I know they exist. My dog knows they exist. My husband feels his pain, so he's like, I say, it's COVID. He's like, shut up. It's like, it's not COVID. And it's a running joke. He's like, oh yeah, I'm in pain here, I'm in pain there. It's COVID, Jason, it's COVID. And he's just like, all right, whatever. And I know it's COVID, okay? Because every single variant you get exposed to is going to bring up your weaknesses and your predispositions. Cancer disease, chronic illness, whatever, it'll run the gamut. It's an evolution. All disease and feeling pain is evolution. So anyways, so immortality, I can substantiate through science. I can substantiate it through freaking science. I don't even have to go to the gods and to mythology and to then, oh yeah, well, who taught the caveman? The Sumerians were visited by somebody. The Egyptians and the Anunnaki, and they had their own visitation, and so did the Confucius, or all the different philosophers in China, Vietnam, and Cambodia. All India had their own gods and things that taught them. Okay, so and it been probably all the same people, but then they had their, the Tower of Babel, the different languages and different cultures, when everyone goes off into their different factions and have their own, and then you have something like the Reformation, where first it's like the Catholic Church, and then you have the Reformation, like, oh, we want to give now the power to the priests and the power to the pulpit. And so then, then the Bibles get rewritten, and then you have different sects of religions that are offshoots. Nothing wrong with them. Everybody has to have their version of the same thing, and that's fine. If you have a shared vision, then yeah, whatever. More power to you. So anyways, I'm going to go and drink some coffee. I just woke up. Man, I'm freaking ready to go. I just sent off 67 pages to my publisher on the microcosmic universe, and I do go into great detail about signaling and paracrine signals and cellular. I mean, that was the agonizing part of the book. So if you're not very detailed, okay, sorry about that. If you're not very detailed, or want to read details on stuff, then, you can skip the microcosmic universe and just skip to the story-like version. So I'm going to do, like, the reversing of the aging process. I'm going to, do the whole thing with the immortality, and then your divine potential was the gift from the gods. That's a whole section unto itself. Okay, and then the New World Order and the operation, or what is it? Maybe some paperclip, and then behavioral sync and all different experiments back in the 1960s and 1970s. And my background is stuff about what I went through during the Jilly Juice rollout and some of the players, and even 2 court cases that I was in. I won't say who the names are, but I'll tell you kind of the experience that I went through, just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's certain things in there that I haven't really told the public too much about, because it just doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't really matter. And people are doing what they're doing, but it's just what I went through. And so, yeah, you're going to kind of see it all from beginning to end, every single idea, thought process that I have within the last 5 years. And then what does the future hold? Women are going to be the backbones. So they still are the backbones of our society. They're going to be in charge. Diversity is the name of the game. And there's no point in resisting. Resistance is futile. Let those that need to get a vaccine get a vaccine. Who cares? Do the J juice. If you're going to get the vaccine, do the J juice anyway. Do the J juice, period, no matter what. Really understand, live indefinitely, understand the mythology. It really is not mythology. It's reality. Every single thing out there, no matter under the sun, is real. Just because you don't see it in your immediate atmosphere doesn't mean it hasn't happened or isn't happening already. Okay? And so when people tell, oh, you're gullible, I was told I was gullible when I believed everything I saw on TV and believed everything I saw in the movies. Well, I should have believed it, because yes, that came from someplace. But my mother said I was gullible. That's how you're able to snow people, is by insulting them, saying that they're gullible, they're a scammer, they're this or that, and not show them the other side of life that you don't want them to see, because then they would be on equal footing with you. So that's the shit that I grew up with. Being called gullible, having so much knowledge being really not given to me because I couldn't handle it, or maybe because she wanted to program me in a specific way that I was resisting the hell out of. Okay? And so now I'm going to say, you know what? Fuck that. No one should have to go through that. Everyone should have all the information, and you do what you want with it. You do what you want with it. But you at least have to have all the information for you to make an educated choice. If you don't have all the information, then what the hell? But then it also puts responsibility back on you when things happen that you don't expect. Well, I told you about jelly juice. I told you. And then I stop saying I told you. And I just like, whatever, you made the choice. You made your bed, you go lie in it. All right. Have a good day. Bye.